Chased by Dogman. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I thought I was going for a leisurely jog just before dawn, but it turned into a speed and endurance test as I found myself chased by a dogman. During the pandemic, I got myself a running machine and ran indoors on weekdays, but on the weekends, whenever possible, I used to drive out to Lake Wissota and run around on the paths through the woods in the state park over there. I found myself getting up earlier each weekend because I was really enjoying being alone in nature and running. Finally, I became one of those people who finished their run just as the sun was coming up. Now that's fine when you're in a nice neighborhood or when you're on a treadmill in your home. But if you're going to run in nature, you've got to accept that nighttime is ruled by nocturnal creatures. Just because you've decided that it's morning does not mean that the creatures who thrive on darkness are done having their day. And some of those creatures of the night are predatorial in nature. This is my true story about one of them. So in those days, I used to jog with my earbuds in, listening to music. For some reason that morning, the music streaming service I used kept playing song after song that I really disliked. I needed to hear encouraging driving music to inspire me to keep going even when I felt tired. I wanted to hear anthems, and instead it was playing me songs about couples breaking up and family members passing away. I was like, what's up with this thing today? And I stopped, turning the music off and trying to choose some other random playlist. During the time I had the sound off, I could actually hear my surroundings, and it was overwhelmingly loud. I had a forest on both sides of the path, and the insects and other night animals created this cacophony of sounds much louder than I had expected. That was when it first dawned on me that it was still night as far as those bugs and birds and raccoons were concerned. The breeze that had felt cooling a moment earlier now felt a bit chilling. I was resigning myself to some musical choice or another on my phone when I experienced a strange sensation. The surrounding sounds of the woods quieted, as though someone were slowly lowering the master volume knob. I thought it was my hearing, so I pulled out my earbuds. The sound kept lowering anyway, which felt so unnatural that now my heart was beating faster. I was swallowing and rubbing my ears to try to clear them, when I realized I could hear myself doing that. I wasn't losing my hearing. It was just that the woods around me were falling dead silent. The sun must be about to come up, I told myself. The crickets were stopping because morning was coming on. That didn't really make sense though, because I had run through that same path at noon, and there were definitely still crickets, just not as loud as at night. I put my phone and my earbuds in my pocket, as it felt as though I'd better pay attention to my surroundings a little better. I started to walk away quietly, not quite wanting to go into a full jog yet. I wished I could fly a drone overhead and figure out why everything had become so strange. I felt in danger somehow, while simultaneously feeling that it was ridiculous to feel that way. Nevertheless, I continued walking silently, listening intently, trying to understand what was happening. Eventually, my conscious mind overruled my primitive lizard brain, and I decided to return to jogging. Literally as soon as I did so, I thought I could hear the sound of twigs and leaves being stepped on in the woods to my right. I stopped running, and the sound stopped as well. I looked behind me on my path. There were no twigs there. I had not stepped on leaves either. To think that I was hearing an echo from the woods made no sense, since I had not made a sound like that in the first place. Still, I told myself it had to be some kind of strange echo, and I returned to jogging. The twig snapping sound from the woods returned too, but this time, I just went with it. I listened as well as I could over the sounds of my own huffing and puffing, and it was definitely something in the woods to my right. I stopped short, and whatever it was ran for one more step after I had stopped. It was the sound of someone else. It was not an echo of me. It was definitely bipedal, so I just assumed it was a guy. A human being, I mean. It was at that point I decided that from now on I would wait till the sun was up before running in nature. I thought it was some kind of thief, or maybe a sicko, and that he planned to rob me, or worse. Little did I suspect that it was, in reality, a completely different kind of monster. "I've got a gun on me," I shouted out for whoever that was to hear. Silence. No reaction. "I've got a knife too," I added. "I've got mace." No reaction, just more silence. And then, slowly, quietly, I could hear whoever that was trudging toward the pathway from the woods. I had won. Whoever it was seemed to be coming out of the forest. No doubt they would apologize for frightening me. I would forgive them, and then we could both go about our day. I was proud of myself for speaking up. I was no longer going to allow myself to be victimized. I was going to take charge of my own life from that moment on. This was a point of pride. But pride goeth before a fall, and my face sure fell when I saw that what walked out of those woods was not only not intending to apologize, it wasn't even a human being. I saw the wolf-like head before I saw the rest of it emerge onto the jogging and biking path. When the rest came out, though, I no longer felt so proud of myself. This was not a bipedal creature. This was a dog standing 4.5 feet tall at the shoulder. And then, this dog did something that I will never get out of my memory. It stood like a human being, on its hind legs. It stood taller than a basketball player, but it was ripped, like a bodybuilder. Imagine if Arnold Schwarzenegger was 7 feet tall. It stood like a man. It had a broad, hairy chest like a man. But this was not really a man at all. It had a dog's head. It stood on devilish, goat-like legs. It was covered in fur, white, black, and brown. I thought I'd been dropped into hell, but the rest of the forest and the pathway still looked the same. I was hyperventilating, and everything took on a dreamlike aura. Honestly, I thought I was about to meet my maker, but instead, I got this powerful sense that I was being told something by the huge beast. It seemed to be telling me to remember my place. It wasn't words being spoken to me, it was just an overwhelming sense of being told something. I was to remember my place and essentially stay in my lane. In addition, I understood, or was somehow made to understand, that the next time I might not be let off with just a warning. The whole thing was an awful lot like being pulled over by a traffic cop. I wasn't sure exactly what my offense was, but I knew I wasn't going to talk back to this officer. Now, it's not like this was Mr. Spock doing telepathy or something. I felt that this was how the creature felt, but I could not be 100% certain that I wasn't just imagining it because of the stress that I was experiencing. When you hyperventilate like I was doing, you can start to imagine all sorts of things. So maybe this was just that, I thought. Still, I sort of wanted it to be true, so I basically obeyed the orders I seemed to be receiving, and I started backing away, my eyes and my head lowered respectfully. With each tentative step I took backward, I waited briefly to see if there would be any reaction from the beast. He just stood there, allowing my retreat. When I had gone back as far as the woodline, I glanced up to see the beast man was gone. Seizing my chance, I turned and ran back the way I could, grateful to be able to live to tell this tale. The entire way back, I could hear the dog in the woods, continuing to chase me. You know, I've never had the same kind of problem with a music streaming service ever again after that morning. If my music had been playing as normal, though, I would never have heard that dogman. I would never have been alerted to his presence. Maybe he could have snuck up on me and done me harm. Sometimes I think it was a guardian angel that caused the software to malfunction, and other times I actually wonder if the dogman itself was interfering with what I was listening to. Maybe he wanted my attention, I don't know. I guess he had something to tell me, even though it made little sense to me when he did. I haven't been back to any natural areas to run since then. Oh, sure, I'll go to the park closer to me, but that's a neighborhood park. No more forests for me to run in. Apparently, that's considered a faux pas by the dogman.
Wear a t-shirt that says how you really feel. I know Dogman is real. I'm allergic to Dogman. Dogman is my friend. I am Dogman. I set a captured Dogman free, and they made me a werewolf to silence me. Links are in the description. Get 20% off through Memorial Day using discount code HANK, Hank.
My Dogman sighting was a UFO sighting first. Dear Scary Stories NYC. This happened back around the turn of the century when my friends and I were driving home one night on the Pennsylvania Turnpike over near Burnt Cabins. We weren't out legend tripping or anything like that. We had all put in a hard day of physical labor, and we just wanted to get home, eat something, and crash out so we could repeat the process the next day. We were tired and not really in the mood to mess around. That's part of what makes some of the decisions we were about to make even more mystifying to me. So we saw something in the sky. It was a strange light floating or flying above the trees to our right. The nature of the light was different from anything I'd ever seen or have seen since. I was fascinated by it and also found the color of it very soothing. I don't even know how to describe that color. It was not like any I had ever seen before. Suddenly all three of us were fascinated by this light. Forgetting how tired we were, we got off the safety of the main highway and ended up on the much narrower Route 522. We got on the road in a small town, but we soon found ourselves driving on a dark forest road with a hill of trees on our right and a valley of trees to our left. We may have been much closer to the light in the sky, but from our vantage point, we couldn't even see the thing up there. And that was when we saw something very different from a UFO. Down the steep hill to our right in front of us, some kind of two-legged hairy chimera ran, slid, hopped, and skidded down toward the road in front of us. If he was a hallucination, he sure kicked up a lot of hallucinatory dust on his way down. All three of us screamed, and I slammed down hard on the brakes. We skidded to a halt only about 20 or 25 feet away from where this dog-headed upright forest being landed somewhat clumsily on the edge of the road. Regaining his balance, he ran out onto the street, seemingly becoming surprised when he ran directly into the path of our headlights. He froze like a deer, but this was no deer. This was an animal clearly used to being at the top of the food chain. I'm not sure on what planet he was on top of the food chain, but he didn't look like a beta male, that's all I'm saying. This creature started roaring at us furiously, and I have to admit, I just sat there, slack-jawed, staring like an imbecile. His fur was brown, but at the edges, the way the headlights hit him, the fur looked almost orange. Just at the edges, I mean, like orange or golden highlights. His eyes shone an amber-white reflection. I don't know how much of the coloring came from my headlights, and how much would have also been there under normal lighting. He was covered head to toe in fur, although there were patches missing here and there, apparently from previous battles that he had survived. He looked quite healthy and must have stood over 6 feet tall. Imagine a heavyweight boxer afflicted with lycanthropy, and you'd be imagining what we were actually looking at. The more the beast-man shouted and barked out angrily at us, the less I understood what was happening. I can't even begin to describe how quickly I went from being curious about the strange light in the sky to being terrified and utterly confused by the Dogman. I remember my buddies shaking me by the shoulder and saying something to me, but I don't remember understanding a word they were saying. My friend in the passenger seat leaned over and did something on the dashboard, and then the headlights went out. Coming out of my haze a bit, I figured out that they had been telling me that the dog-headed man was angry about the headlights. They had been telling me to put the lights out so that the Dogman would stop shouting and carrying on. Looking around, I couldn't see the man-beast out there anymore, or much of anything else for that matter. This was not a road with street lamps on it, or at least it wasn't back then. So where did the Dogman go? I asked my friends. I probably didn't call it a Dogman, but you get what I'm saying. I couldn't see where the thing was or where it had gone. I wanted to make a U-turn and get the heck out of there. All of a sudden I remembered how tired I was and how early we all had to get up in the morning. It was like I was coming out of a fog. We all were. None of us could see the Dogman out there, so my friends all encouraged me to turn the lights back on and get the heck out of that spooky patch of woods. When I flicked the switch and they came back, that Dogman was standing just about exactly where he had been before the lights were off. I want to say that's not possible because we looked there more than anywhere else. Even in the dark, we should have been able to make out his silhouette. He was only 20 or 25 feet in front of us. Once those lights were back on, the thing flipped out again. This time it didn't just make a lot of noise though. It started running toward us on its hind legs. Now what I did next makes no logical sense, but it's what I did. I turned the headlights back off again. And you know what? We couldn't see the creature anymore. Granted, the road was very dark, but there was no animal man in front of us any longer. If it were still there, it would have run into our hood already. It's weird how quickly your mind can adapt to an entirely new set of rules for reality. Fine, if he was only going to be there when my lights were on, then I was going to make a U-turn in the dark. Period. And that's what I did. I turned us around, got the car up to speed, and then turned the headlights back on. If that Dogman wanted to appear in front of us when we were going 35 miles an hour, he had my blessings. Of course, the Dogman's too smart to do anything like that. And in the 23 or 24 years since this happened, none of the three of us have seen any more strange lights in the sky, or any more Dogman or cryptids. We never did figure out if that creature was running away from that UFO, or if it had escaped from it, or what. For all we know, that Dogman was the pilot of the flying craft. What I really want to know, but I never will, is whether that UFO had any real connection to the Dogman. Was it in fact leading us to that forest deliberately? I mean, our moods sure changed when we saw that light in the sky. Was our change in attitude genuine, or were our emotions and minds being manipulated? All three of us moved away from the Midwest since then, but we keep in touch mostly through email. None of us have come up with any answers in all the years since then. And not only do we have no answers, but none of the people we talked to about this incident seem to have any answers for us either. I suppose I shouldn't have expected anything different because my Dogman sighting was a UFO sighting first. In the list of those who help our show, nobody's better than him. Whether it's sun, rain, sleet, or snow, we thank Godzilla Tim. We'd like to dedicate this episode to that smooth talker, Godzilla Tim Walker. Godzilla Tim was one of the first to buy some of our new merch, which we told you about earlier in this show. Links are in the description. Use discount code HANKHANK to get a 20% discount. And here to list all the ways you can help us beat the odds and stay online is international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman. Hank. Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button. Or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.